Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the USS Defiant. The ship was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines working. He looked out the big window at the stars and felt proud. This was Earth's newest warship, and he was in charge of it. The Defiant was different from other ships in space. While alien races used energy shields and laser weapons, humans had built something else. The ship had thick metal armor that could change and adapt. It had guns that shot metal pieces very fast. Most important, it had a computer brain called Phoenix that could think and learn. Jake had been a space pilot for 15 years. He had seen many battles against pirates and rebels, but he had never commanded a ship like this one. The Defiant was special. It was Earth's answer to the big alien empires that ruled the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Carter had picked Jake to be the captain. She was a tough woman who had fought in the Mars Wars. She believed that humans could build better ships than the aliens, even if the aliens had fancier technology. Lisa had watched the Defiant being built in the shipyards around Mars. Every piece of metal, every wire, every computer chip was made by human hands. The alien races thought humans were stupid. They called Earth a farm planet, where primitive people grew food and raised animals. The Zephyrian Empire was the worst. Their ambassador had visited Earth last year and laughed at human technology. He said humans should stick to farming and leave fighting to the real civilizations. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake sat at the weapons control station. He was a young man with short black hair and serious eyes. Ryan had studied alien weapons for years. He knew that most alien ships used plasma cannons and energy shields, but the Defiant was different. It had railguns that could shoot tungsten bullets at incredible speed. It also had something called the hammer that even the engineers did not fully understand. Ryan checked the weapon systems one more time. The railguns were ready. The hammer was charging. The computer brain Phoenix was connected to everything. Ryan had never seen an AI system like Phoenix. Most alien computers were simple and predictable. Phoenix was different. It could learn and change. It could make decisions that surprised even its creators. Dr. Amy Collins worked in the science lab below the bridge. She was a small woman with red hair and green eyes. Amy had helped build Phoenix from the beginning. She had spent months teaching the AI how to think and learn. Phoenix was not just a computer. It was almost like a living mind made of electricity and metal. Amy talked to Phoenix every day. The AI asked questions about everything. It wanted to know about human history, about wars, about how people thought and felt. Phoenix learned faster than any human child. It read every book in Earth's libraries in just a few days. It studied every battle that humans had ever fought. The aliens did not understand Phoenix. They thought it was just another simple computer. They had tried to build smart machines before, but they always failed. Their AIs were too rigid, too predictable. Phoenix was different because it was built by humans, and humans were unpredictable. Jake called his senior officers to the bridge. Ryan came up from the weapons deck. Amy came up from the science lab. They were joined by Lieutenant Sam Rogers, the communications officer. Sam was a tall man with blonde hair who could speak 12 alien languages. "We just got new orders," Jake said. He looked at his crew with serious eyes. "The Zephyrian Empire is gathering a big fleet near the Proxima system. They want to destroy US in front of the whole galaxy." Ryan whistled softly. "How many ships?" "Over 200, Jake replied. "Admiral Carter says we're going to meet them." Amy looked worried. 200 ships against one? That's impossible. "Maybe," Jake said. "But we're not going to run away. Earth has decided to make a stand. We're going to show the galaxy that humans don't back down from a fight." Sam checked his communication equipment. "The aliens are already talking about it. They're calling it a demonstration. They want to show everyone what happens when small planets try to fight the big empires. Phoenix spoke through the ship's speakers. The AI's voice was calm and clear. Captain, I have been studying Zephyrian battle tactics. They use standard formations that have not changed in 50 years. They are predictable. Jake smiled. What? Do you think, Phoenix? Can we beat them? I do not know, Phoenix replied, but I am willing to try. I have learned much about human warfare. Humans do not fight like other species. Humans adapt. Humans surprise their enemies. The crew looked at each other. They knew this might be their last mission. The Zephyrian Empire had never lost a major battle. Their ships were bigger and more powerful than anything Earth had ever built, but they had never fought humans before. Amy ran more tests on Phoenix. The AI was ready. It had absorbed information about every known alien weapon and defense system. More importantly, it had learned to think like a human. It could be creative, unpredictable, and ruthless when necessary. The Defiant began moving toward the Proxima system. As they traveled through space, Jake thought about Earth. He thought about the farms and cities, the mountains and oceans. He thought about the people who had built this ship and trusted him to use it well. The aliens thought humans were weak because they came from a small planet. They did not understand that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned to be clever, to use what they had, to never give up. Now they would show the galaxy what human determination could accomplish. The Defiant flew toward its destiny, carrying the hopes of an entire world. Fleet Admiral Zixtar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The massive ship was 3 miles long and armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Around him, 200 other Zephyrian warships moved in perfect formation through space. Never before had such a powerful fleet been assembled for such a simple task. The Admiral was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. Like all Zephyrians, he believed his race was superior to all others in the galaxy. They had ruled space for over 1,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds and defeated every enemy. To them, humans were just another primitive species that needed to be taught their place. Admiral, said his second-in-command, Captain Vexilon, the human ship has left Earth's solar system. It is heading toward the Proxima system as expected. Zixtar made a sound that was like laughter. One ship. They are sending one ship to fight our entire fleet. These humans must be even more stupid than we thought. The bridge crew joined in. The laughter. To them, this was not a real battle. It was a demonstration. They would destroy the human ship quickly and broadcast the recording across the galaxy. Every other small planet would see what happened when they tried to challenge. The Zephyrian Empire, the Eternal Dominion alone, was larger than the entire Earth fleet. Its plasma cannons could melt through any known armor. Its energy shields had never been broken by any weapon. The ship carried enough firepower to level a continent. And it was just one ship in a fleet of 200. Captain Morrison received a message from Admiral Carter back on Earth. The transmission came through quantum communication, which meant it was instant, even across the vast distances of space. Jake read the message to his crew. Earth Command has decided that we will not retreat, he said. We will engage the Zephyrian fleet at the coordinates they have chosen. Our mission is to show the galaxy that humans will not be intimidated. Ryan checked his weapons one more time. The railguns were loaded with tungsten bullets. Each bullet was only a few inches long, but when fired at near-light speed, it carried the force of a nuclear bomb. The hammer was also ready, though nobody was sure exactly what it would do in a real battle. Captain, Amy said from her station, Phoenix has been studying all available information about Zephyrian tactics. The AI has found some interesting patterns. Jake turned to listen. Amy continued, Phoenix says that Zephyrian fleets always fight the same way. They use formations that were developed hundreds of years ago. They never change their tactics because they have never needed to. They always win through superior firepower. Phoenix spoke through the ship's speakers. The Zephyrian Empire has become lazy. They have not faced a real challenge in decades. They believe their technology makes them invincible. This may be their weakness. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian fleet continued its approach. Admiral Zixstar had arranged his ships in a hunting formation. The fastest ships would surround the human vessel, while the heavy cruisers moved in for the kill. It was a tactic that had worked against every enemy they had ever faced. "How long until we reach the meeting point?" Zixstar asked. 6 hours, Admiral," replied the navigation officer. "Good. Send a message to all ship captains. Tell them to charge their weapons, but not to fire until I give the order. I want to speak to this human captain before we destroy his ship. I want him to understand how foolish his people have been." A message was sent across the fleet. 200 captains acknowledged the order. They were all eager to see the human ship destroyed. Many had bet on how long it would take. Most thought the battle would be over in less than 5 minutes. Sam Rogers intercepted enemy communications. His equipment was more advanced than the Zephyrians realized. He could listen to their private channels and understand their plans. What he heard made him angry. "Captain," Sam said, "they're planning to disable our engines first. Then they want to broadcast our destruction across the galaxy. They think this will scare other planets into surrendering without a fight." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "They want to make an example of us." "Yes, sir. They're already preparing the broadcast equipment. They plan to send the recording to every major world in the galaxy." Amy worked with Phoenix to analyze the enemy formation. The AI was processing thousands of battle recordings, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Phoenix had an advantage that no other computer possessed. It could think creatively, like a human. "I have found something interesting," Phoenix announced. "The Zephyrian ships use overlapping energy shields for protection. But when the shields overlap, they create electromagnetic interference. This interference disrupts their own sensors." Ryan looked up from his weapons console. "Are you saying they have blind spots?" "Exactly. When their ships group together for maximum protection, they create zones where their sensors cannot function properly. They do not know about this weakness because no enemy has ever been able to exploit it." Jake smiled. This was the kind of information that could change everything. "How do we use this?" "We must get close enough to their formation to reach these blind spots. Then we can attack from within their own defensive lines." The plan was dangerous. It would require the Defiant to fly directly into the enemy fleet. Most captains would consider it suicide. But Jake had learned to trust Phoenix's analysis. The AI had studied more battle data than any human could process in a lifetime. The Defiant continued toward the meeting point. The crew prepared for battle. They knew they were outnumbered by an impossible margin. But they also knew they had advantages the enemy did not understand. They had Phoenix, who could think faster than any Zephyrian computer. They had weapons that worked differently than anything the aliens had seen before. Most importantly, they had something the Empire had forgotten about: the human refusal to give up. Hours passed. The two forces drew closer together. The Zephyrian fleet moved in perfect formation, confident in their superior numbers and technology. The single human ship approached alone, carrying the hopes of an entire world. Neither side knew that this battle would change the galaxy forever. The Empire expected an easy victory that would strengthen their control over space. The humans hoped to survive long enough to show they could not be easily defeated. Soon, they would meet in the darkness. Between the stars, and the universe would learn what happened when an ancient empire met human determination. A moment of contact arrived like thunder in the silence of space. The Defiant appeared on Zephyrian sensors as a small dot moving toward their massive formation. Admiral Zixstar watched from his command chair as the single human ship approached. His fleet of 200 warships. "Look at that," he said to his officers. "One tiny ship against our entire armada. These humans must be completely insane." The Zephyrian fleet spread out in a hunting pattern. Fast attack ships moved to surround the human vessel, while heavy cruisers prepared to deliver the killing blow. It was a formation they had used 1,000 times before. It had never failed. Jake watched the enemy ships on his screen. They were beautiful in their own way, sleek and deadly, with energy shields that glowed like colored lights. But Phoenix was already analyzing their movements, looking for the weaknesses that the AI had predicted. "They're doing exactly what we expected," Phoenix announced. "The ships are spreading out to prevent our escape. But this creates the blind spots I calculated. They cannot see clearly into the spaces between their own formations." Ryan prepared the railguns. Unlike the plasma weapons used by most alien races, railguns were completely silent. They fired solid projectiles using magnetic fields. A tungsten. Bullets would be invisible to most sensors until they hit their targets. "Captain," Amy said, "Phoenix is ready to execute the attack pattern. But we need to get much closer to the enemy formation. We'll have to fly right into the middle of their fleet." Jake nodded. "Do it. Show them what Phoenix can do." The Defiant suddenly changed course. Instead of trying to escape or fight from a distance, it turned directly toward the Zephyrian fleet. The move was so unexpected that the enemy captains hesitated. For a moment, "What are they doing?" Captain Vexilon asked. Admiral Zixstar frowned. "They're committing suicide. No sane captain would fly into the middle of our formation." But Jake Morrison was not insane. He was following a plan that Phoenix had calculated down to the smallest detail. The AI had studied every battle recording, every tactical manual, every strategic document it could find. It knew exactly how Zephyrian ships would react to different situations. Defiant dove toward the enemy formation like a missile. The Zephyrian ships tried to adjust their positions, but they were too close together. Their energy shields began to overlap, creating the interference zones that Phoenix had predicted. "Now," Jake said quietly, Phoenix took control of the ship's weapons. The AI could think and react faster than any human. It calculated angles, distances, and timing with perfect accuracy. The railguns fired in a pattern that no human gunner could have managed. The first tungsten bullet struck a Zephyrian cruiser at 90% of light speed. The kinetic energy was incredible. The bullet passed through the ship's energy shield, as if it was not there. The solid metal projectile carried so much force that it punched a hole completely through the enemy vessel. The Zephyrian ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Before the enemy could react, 11 more ships suffered the same fate. Phoenix had fired 12 bullets in less than 3 seconds, each one targeted at a different vessel. "Impossible," Admiral Zixstar shouted. "How did they penetrate our shields?" His weapons officer was checking the sensor readings. "Admiral, their projectiles are not energy-based. They're using solid metal bullets fired at tremendous velocity. Our shields are designed to stop plasma and laser weapons, not physical projectiles." The Defiant moved through the Zephyrian formation like a shark among fish. Phoenix had calculated every movement perfectly. The AI guided the ship through the blind spots where enemy sensors could not track it properly. The railguns continued to fire, each shot destroying another enemy vessel. Ryan watched in amazement as Phoenix fought the battle. The AI was not just shooting at random targets. It was choosing specific ships whose destruction would cause maximum chaos. When a command ship exploded, the vessels under its control became confused and disorganized. "Phoenix is using their own formation against them," Amy observed. Every ship it destroys makes the others more vulnerable. The Zephyrian fleet tried to reorganize, but Phoenix had predicted their response. The AI had studied their tactics for months. It knew exactly how they would try to adapt to this new threat. Every move they made had already been calculated and countered. Jake felt a mixture of pride and fear as he watched the battle unfold. Phoenix was performing beyond his wildest expectations. But he also knew that this was just the beginning. The enemy still had overwhelming numbers, and they were starting to adapt to the new threat. Admiral Zigstar ordered his ships to spread out and stop using overlapping shields. But Phoenix had already moved on to the next phase of the attack. The AI activated the hammer. Nobody on the Defiant knew exactly how the hammer worked. It had been developed by a team of scientists who had died in a lab accident before they could explain their creation. All they knew was that it could manipulate gravity in small areas of space. The hammer fired at a cluster of enemy ships. Suddenly, the space around those vessels became distorted. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared in random patterns. Some ships were crushed by incredible forces. Others were flung into each other at high speed. "What is that weapon?" Captain Vexilon demanded. "Unknown," the weapons officer replied. "It appears to be some kind of gravity manipulation device. I've never seen anything like it." The Zephyrian fleet was now in complete chaos. Ships were exploding, colliding, and fleeing in all directions. What had started as a simple demonstration of Imperial power had become a nightmare. The single human ship was tearing through their formation like it was made of paper. Sam Rogers monitored enemy communications. The Zephyrian captains were panicking. They had never faced an enemy like this. Their weapons seemed useless against the human ship's strange armor. Their tactics had been completely predicted and countered. "Captain," Sam reported, "they're trying to call for reinforcements, but their communication system is being jammed by their own electromagnetic interference." Phoenix spoke calmly through the ship's speakers. "The enemy is attempting to withdraw. Shall I pursue?" Jake looked at the tactical display. In less than 10 minutes, Phoenix had destroyed over 30 enemy ships. The rest of the fleet was scattering in all directions. The mighty Zephyrian Armada was running away from a single human vessel. "Yes," Jake said. "Let's finish this." The Defiant accelerated toward the fleeing enemy ships. The battle was far from over, but the tide had already turned. The Empire's arrogance had become their greatest weakness. They had underestimated human ingenuity and paid a terrible price. As the pursuit began, Jake realized that this battle would change everything. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. Humanity had announced its presence in the most dramatic way possible, and the universe was taking notice. Admiral Zigstar could not believe what he was seeing. His mighty fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, was being destroyed by a single human ship. Vessels that had conquered entire star systems were exploding like toys. The impossible was happening before his eyes. All ships regroup. He commanded through the fleet communication system. Form defensive positions around the Eternal Dominion. But his orders were barely heard above the chaos. Phoenix had learned to jam Zephyrian communications by using their own shield interference against them. The AI was adapting faster than the enemy could respond. Every few seconds, Phoenix discovered new ways to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. The Defiant moved through space like a living thing. Phoenix controlled every system on the ship, from the engines to the weapons to the navigation. The AI could process thousands of calculations per second, making decisions that would take human commanders hours to plan. Ryan watched his weapons display with growing amazement. The railguns were firing constantly now, each shot guided by Phoenix's perfect calculations. The tungsten bullets found their targets with deadly accuracy. Even when enemy ships tried to dodge, Phoenix predicted their movements and adjusted its aim accordingly. Phoenix is learning from every shot, Amy observed. It's getting better at predicting enemy behavior. The AI is evolving in real time. Jake nodded. He had given Phoenix complete control of the battle, trusting the AI to make the right decisions. So far, that trust had been rewarded, but he knew the real test was still coming. The enemy would eventually adapt to their tactics. The Zephyrian fleet tried to form a defensive wall around their flagship. Heavy cruisers moved into position, while smaller ships provided covering fire. It was a standard defensive formation that had protected countless fleets throughout galactic history. Phoenix studied the new formation for exactly 2.3 seconds. Then the AI found the weakness. The enemy is using interlocking fields of fire, Phoenix announced. But their positioning creates a spiral pattern that can be exploited. I am adjusting our attack vector. The Defiant suddenly changed direction, moving in a complex spiral pattern that seemed random. But Phoenix had calculated every turn perfectly. The ship threaded through the gaps in the enemy formation, avoiding their concentrated firepower while striking at vulnerable targets. The hammer fired again, creating gravity distortions in the middle of the enemy formation. 3 Zephyrian ships were pulled together and crushed into twisted metal. Another ship was flung away at high speed, spinning out of control. What kind of weapon is that? Admiral Zixstar demanded. His science officers studied the sensor readings. It appears to manipulate local gravity fields. But the technology is completely unknown to us. We have no defense against it. The Admiral felt fear for the first time in decades. His fleet was being destroyed by weapons and tactics he had never seen before. The humans were fighting in ways that made no sense according to traditional military doctrine. Sam Rogers continued monitoring enemy communications. The Zephyrian captains were reporting massive casualties. Many ships were requesting permission to retreat. The mighty Imperial fleet was falling apart. "Captain," Sam said, "they're trying to coordinate a mass withdrawal. But Phoenix is disrupting their signals. Most of their ships can't communicate with each other. The battle had become a rout. Zephyrian ships were fleeing in all directions, abandoning their formation and leaving their comrades behind. The disciplined Imperial fleet had become a mob of panicked vessels trying to escape. Phoenix pressed the attack. The AI had identified the key command ships that controlled different sections of the fleet. By destroying these vessels, Phoenix could cause maximum confusion among the remaining enemy forces. The railguns fired in rapid succession. Command ship after command ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Each destruction left dozens of other vessels without orders or coordination. The Zephyrian fleet was becoming more disorganized by the minute, but Phoenix was not finished learning. The AI had discovered that Zephyrian ships had a weakness in their engine design. When struck in a specific location, their power systems would overload and explode. Phoenix began targeting these weak points with surgical precision. "The enemy is adapting to our tactics," Amy warned. "Some ships are changing their shield frequencies to better resist our railgun fire." "It does not matter," Phoenix replied. "I have already calculated 17 different ways to penetrate their new shield configurations. Human weapons are more versatile than they realize." The Defiant's adaptive armor had also proven its worth. Zephyrian plasma weapons struck the ship repeatedly, but the armor absorbed and redistributed the energy. The metal surface rippled and flowed like liquid, healing damage almost as quickly as it occurred. Jake watched the tactical display as enemy ships continued to explode around them. The Defiant was outnumbered 50-1, but Phoenix was turning those odds into an advantage. The AI was using the enemy's own numbers against them. "Phoenix," Jake said, "what's the status of their flagship?" "The Eternal Dominion is heavily damaged but still operational. Admiral Zixstar is attempting to rally his remaining forces for a final assault. I estimate he has approximately 40 ships still under his direct command. That was still a formidable force. But Jake had complete confidence in Phoenix's abilities. The AI had already proven it could handle impossible odds. The remaining Zephyrian ships formed a desperate defensive circle around their flagship. They knew they were fighting for their lives now. The arrogant Imperial fleet had become a group of survivors trying to escape a nightmare. Admiral Zixtar stood on his bridge, watching his empire's reputation crumble. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had never lost a major battle. But today, a single human ship was destroying everything they had built. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel, he ordered. We will overwhelm them with sheer firepower. 40 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around the Defiant filled with plasma bolts and energy beams. It was enough concentrated firepower to destroy a small moon, but Phoenix had predicted this final gambit. The AI had already calculated the exact position where the enemy fire would converge. The Defiant was somewhere else entirely when the weapons fired. The human ship appeared behind the enemy formation like a ghost. Phoenix had used the hammer to bend space around the ship, making it temporarily invisible to enemy sensors. It was a technique that no Zephyrian had ever seen before. Impossible, Admiral Zixtar shouted. How did they get behind us? Before his officers could answer, the Defiant opened fire. The railguns struck the Eternal Dominion's engines, causing massive explosions. The mighty flagship began to spin out of control, its power systems failing. The battle was almost over. The Zephyrian Empire's most powerful fleet had been destroyed by a single human ship and an AI that refused to fight by the rules. The Eternal Dominion drifted through space like a dying giant. Its engines were destroyed, its weapons were offline, and its hull was torn open in dozens of places. Admiral Zixtar stood in the ruins of his command bridge, staring at the single human ship that had destroyed his entire fleet. This is impossible, he whispered. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. How can one primitive ship defeat us? Captain Vexilon, wounded but still alive, crawled to his admiral's side. Sir, we must surrender. The human ship is requesting communication. Zixtar wanted to refuse, but he looked around at the destruction and knew he had no choice. Of the 200 ships that had come to destroy Earth's prototype, only 23 were still capable of movement. The rest were either destroyed or drifting helplessly through space. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant, feeling a mixture of triumph and disbelief. They had done it. A single human ship had defeated the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The victory seemed impossible, but the evidence was floating all around them. Phoenix, he said, open a channel to the enemy flagship. Admiral Zixtar's image appeared on the main screen. The proud Zephyrian leader looked broken and defeated. His purple skin was pale, and his forearms hung limply at his sides. I am Admiral Zixtar of the Zephyrian Empire, he said in a voice that shook with emotion. I request terms of surrender. Jake felt no joy in the enemy's defeat. He had been a soldier long enough to know that war was always tragic, even when you won. Admiral, I accept your surrender. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and prepare to be escorted to the nearest neutral station. The transmission ended. Around the Defiant, the surviving Zephyrian ships began to comply with the surrender order. Their weapons went dark and their shields powered down. The mighty Imperial fleet had become a collection of defeated vessels limping home. Amy worked at her station, recording everything that had happened. The battle data would be invaluable for future ship designs. But more importantly, the recordings would prove to the galaxy that Earth was not a weak farming planet that could be pushed around. "Phoenix," she said, "how do you feel about what we've accomplished?" The AI was quiet for a moment before responding. "I feel proud. Is that the correct word? I was created to protect humanity, and I have succeeded. But I also feel sadness for the Zephyrian crews who died today. They were brave, even if they were wrong." Ryan checked his weapon systems. The railguns were still ready, but hopefully they would not be needed again. The battle had proven that human engineering could compete with any alien technology in the galaxy. "Captain," he said, "we've received a message from Earth. Admiral Carter wants a full report as soon as possible." Jake nodded. The victory would change everything for humanity. Earth had been ignored and dismissed by the galactic community. Now, every major civilization would have to take humans seriously. Sam Rogers monitored communications from across the galaxy. News of the battle was spreading faster than light through the quantum communication networks. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. "Captain," Sam reported, "we're receiving messages from dozens of alien governments. They all want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Some are offering trade agreements. Others are requesting military alliances." Jake smiled. Yesterday, humanity had been alone in the galaxy. Today, every major power wanted to be their friend. The Empire's arrogance had backfired spectacularly, but the real changes were just beginning. On Earth, Admiral Carter received reports from intelligence agents across human space. Alien fleets that had been threatening human colonies were suddenly withdrawing. Pirates who had been attacking human merchant ships were fleeing to distant. Star systems. The victory at Proxima had sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. If a single human ship could destroy the Zephyrian Empire's best fleet, what could the entire Earth Navy do? Suddenly, humans were not seen as easy targets anymore. Dr. Collins began planning improvements to Phoenix. The AI had performed beyond all expectations, but there was always room for improvement. The lessons learned from this battle would be incorporated into future AI systems. "Phoenix," she said, "what would you change about your performance today?" "I would improve my predictive algorithms," Phoenix replied. "There were 2.7 seconds during the battle when I was uncertain about enemy movements. With better data, I could have reduced casualties on both sides." Even in victory, the AI was thinking about how to do better next time. It was a very human trait, Amy thought. Phoenix had learned more from humanity than just military tactics. Defiant began the long journey home to Earth. Behind them, the surviving Zephyrian ships limped toward their own territory. The battle was over, but its effects would last for generations. On hundreds of worlds across the galaxy, alien leaders held emergency meetings. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. The Zephyrian Empire was no longer the undisputed master of space. A new player had emerged, and nobody was sure what humanity would do next. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves. But what came next? Would they become conquerors like the Zephyrians? Or would they find a different path among the stars? "Phoenix," he said, "what do you think humanity should do now?" The AI considered the question carefully. "Humans have always been explorers and builders. I believe they should continue to be both. The galaxy is large enough for many different civilizations to thrive. Perhaps humanity can show others that strength does not require domination." As the Defiant traveled home, its crew knew they had witnessed something historic. They had seen the moment when humanity stepped onto the galactic stage and announced their presence with authority. The Empire had laughed at Earth's prototype, but that laughter had died in the fires of their own ships. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest or intimidation, but through ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the universe was watching with new respect. A single ship that had been dismissed as a joke had changed the course of galactic history. Earth's prototype had become the foundation of a new era, and humanity was ready to embrace its destiny among the stars.